So there's 5 keys to effective marketing. So this is our delivery mechanisms. We've talked about the pain points, the conversion expectations. We've talked about creating a unique selling proposition for your business. We've talked about building a team that can support that unique selling proposition. Well, we have that USP. Now it's time to market and promote your USP. So I think that there's 5 keys to marketing. Number 1 is it starts with be consistent. And I know that sounds really cliche and basic. Don't start marketing if you're not going to continue. One of the worst things that you can do, unless you have the appropriate expectation and a plan to go around it, but one of the worst things that you can do is set up a website and never send a letter to tell someone about the website. One of the worst things you can do is do a single YouTube video and put it up and never promote it, never keyword it, never send it out, or never do any extra videos, is to send a single letter and don't follow it up, because these people take a while to sell. They take a while to nurture and build that relationship. So you've got to be consistent. Now, I've seen a single letter work. I've seen a single video work, a single website or a blog work. I've seen those work, but they're just not going to work predictably if you're not consistent following those methods up. So I want you guys to be consistent with whatever you start. And if you're not going to be consistent, don't start. Don't start. I would rather see you guys spend no money and not focus on this at all than spend a little bit of money and get no results because you didn't follow up with consistency. Number 2 is in your marketing, you need to focus on that unique selling proposition. So that 2 to 3 sentences that you have as a unique selling proposition, I want you guys to focus on it with everything that you have. If one letter that you send out talks about, hey, I provide a concierge service that helps go through probate. And then the next letter that you send out says, hey, I have an estate sale company. And the next letter says, I want to buy your house. And the next call says, you want a free appraisal? That's all just muddying the waters and making people really confused on what you do. So when you pick your clear and concise and short, unique selling proposition, something you can explain in a couple of sentences at most, when you pick that, put it into everything that you do. Put it in your phone calls, put it in your videos, your blogs, your website, your letters, your postcards. Put it everywhere that you can put it. Now, don't worry, I just listed off a ton of different mediums that you could use. You don't have to start with all those things. Those are all just examples of places that you could put your USP. Start with 1 or 2 of those, and then gradually over time, over the next 3, 4, 6 months, 12 months, expand and add things to it. So, but focus on your USP and stick to your message. If you don't stick to your message, people will forget about you. They'll be confused by you. I'm friends with an agent named Amanda, and Amanda goes by the Traveling Realtor, Amanda the Traveling Realtor. And when I first heard that term, I thought, well, that's kind of silly. And I'm going to be honest. I thought that's kind of silly. Realtors don't spend their life on the road. You got to be local. You got to be local to sell real estate. It's still something that if I heard it for the first time today, I would still think that's kind of silly if I heard it for the first time today. But now it's been 4 or 5 years that I've heard that over and over and over and over again. And because it's consistent, despite the fact that it seems like an oxymoron to me, despite that, because it's been consistent, it's believable now. So I want you to take your USP and stick to it, and stick to it, and stick to it, and stick to it. Okay. That's going to be the most important thing with your USP, especially with regard to your marketing. So number 3 is I want you guys establishing credibility. And I'm going to give you guys the next 2 things here. But I want you to focus on this established credibility. And I'm going to ask you guys, chat in, how have I, if you never knew who I was before today, and I realize a lot of people have come to Foundations before or been in Mastery or saw the announcements and you know who I am, but let's just pretend that nobody knows who I am. You'd never heard of me before today. How have I personally established credibility as someone that's able to guide you into a successful business in the probate niche? How have I done this with this class? I want you to chat your comments in. How have I established credibility with you? And then I'm going to tie it back to your business in a moment. But before I tie it back to your business, I'm going to show you the next 2 things. So in your marketing, don't forget to ask for engagement. I had a subscriber one time that they were working with all the leads, and so I was coaching at all the leads, and they came in and said, Bruce, I had an amazing phone call today, and they said someone called me and they told me that they'd been getting my letters and they just loved them, and I was like, that's amazing. When are you going to list the house? And she said, well, that's the next thing. They told me that they weren't going to list the house that they'd already sold. And I said, well, why'd they call you? And they called me to tell me I didn't have to waste my money on stamps anymore, on mail anymore. And I was like, well, that's kind of rude. And they said, well, they would have loved to have worked with me, but I forgot to tell them how they could engage with me. And I went and looked at this subscriber's letters, and there was no phone number, there was no website, and there was no ask for business. It was all just giving value, giving, and no request for business. And so I want you guys to never forget, and I don't think anyone would do this. Well, I wouldn't have thought anyone would do this, but I've seen it. Don't forget to tell people how they can work with you and why they should work with you. And then last, once you have your marketing in place, then you begin to expand on it, and you expand into trying to be omnipresent to a narrow audience. I had a client one time, her name was Renee. And Renee called me one time and she said, Bruce, you're everywhere. You must be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on marketing. And the little secret was, I only had about a list of about 100 hot prospects that had all come in and visited my website, and I retargeted them through Google and social media advertisements. And because it was only 100 people, I could put an ad and marketing in front of them 4 or 5 times a day for almost nothing. But that person thought that I was omnipresent because I hyper targeted my focus on Renee, and she thought I was everywhere. She thought I was spending tons of money. And you can do the same thing. Once you have your core pieces together, your mailers, you're making calls, you've got some advertisements going out, then you can really hyper focus on individuals and make them feel like you're everywhere, that you're the only person. All right, so how have I become credible? Nikki, telling real stories. Confident knowledge. Garland, by giving educational information. Garland, because I can't see your face, I feel as though I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that you cheated. I can't, if I could just see your face, I'd know for sure. I think you've been in foundations before because you gave the exact correct answer, and almost nobody ever does. So by educating, if you want to establish credibility with your audience, you educate. And that means for those of you that are unconsciously incompetent, or let's say that you're consciously incompetent now, you don't know what you're doing. When you go out and you learn a piece of this business, learn it in order to teach it. So if you learn when someone needs to do an estate sale, teach it. Go in front of a camera or interview on Zoom an estate sale company, or put it in a blog or put it in a letter. Educate. There's no faster way to build credibility than to educate. Everything else that you guys gave is 100% true. I am a huge believer in storytelling, Nikki. Huge believer. I think that I credit it for so many things in my life. It's true. Confident knowledge is so true. Say what I do. Do what I say. Okay. Absolutely true. All of those are accurate answers, but none of them match the credibility that you gain when you teach people something. So if you want to shortcut your way to the top of someone's mind and make yourself the number one expert that they'll go to, teach. All right. I've got some people in probate mastery that one of them is here in my market, and he does YouTube videos with attorneys every single week. And he gets so much business. He's actually better at this business than I am. He's taken some of the things that I've done and taught, and he's expanded on those. And he's better than I am at this business, gets more than I do, because he builds credibility through education. So I want you guys kind of focusing on these core areas.